Hello and welcome to Your Daily Detroit. It is Friday, July 1st, 2022. We made it to another month. I'm Jer Stays, and hello, Devon O'Reilly.
Hello there, Jer. Another warm Friday heading into the holiday weekend. Hope everyone's doing well and good to talk to you.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think it is going to be a wonderful weekend, whether you are east or west of Woodward.
Jer, throughout Michigan, it's going to be a great weekend, I think. So happy 4th of July to everyone. But before we start enjoying our 4th of July weekend, we got some stuff to talk about.
We definitely do. Before I get started, I will mention some housekeeping. Obviously, we do not do federal holidays at Daily Detroit, so we will not be on the air Monday. We will be back on Tuesday. In the in-between time, though, I will say I did a little bit of adventuring. I was not quite the man about town that you are, but I did my best.
All right. I'd love to hear you exploring, Jer. Where'd you go?
All right. So I was working on another story for next week, and I saw that open and ready to go was a place that has been near and dear to my heart for a long time. And if you've been to Capitol Park, you know it because it's mid-century modern. It's like a couple stories tall on the edge of a garage, and it's very, very, very orange.
Yes, I think most people can identify that place immediately. It's been around for a while in Detroit terms. The coffee shop that was there. Whoa, Urban Bean, that was it. Urban Bean.
Right. Well, it's no longer Urban Bean.
Right. So I'd been seeing, last time I saw it, or not last time, but it'd been gutted and they were working on it. And I was really interested to see what was going to become of this really cool space. So it sounds like you can give us an update on what has become of the former Urban Bean.
Yes, it is now called SpkrBox. And it is leaning into the whole coffee techno vibes thing. Looks like they've taken on a new partner, which, has been able to kind of infuse this a little bit with, now there are like open cocktails and like a full bar. There is a complete remodel. And what I love about this remodel is that it really respects what was there before, but I think, forgive me, turns it to 11.
Okay, fair enough, Jer. Now that's a small space though. I can picture the footprint of it and what it looked like inside. Didn't seem like there was a lot of creative ability to change stuff around there. It's kind of like the space itself kind of dictated what it was going to be and what it looked like. So can you tell me a little bit, Jer, and for those people who have been in there, which I assume that some, if not a lot of our listeners have been in, what is the major differences walking back in there now?
Okay, so number one, it feels like it's been kind of luxed up a little bit. It's shinier. It's even more orange. But it's like embraced its mid-century modern, but took it with a bit of style and panache that a remodel can do. When you are able to take that pandemic opportunity and shutter down and then really kind of take it to the next level, they did that. So the bar top is redone and better. You've got a full bar behind the counter. You've got kind of like a SpkrBox theme with that. Get this, they added a room somehow. There's like a conversation room. And one of the things they did was added rose gold accents for things like the light switches and stuff like that. There is a rose gold chain like door that you walk through. And then there's two kind of comfy banquettes that are kind of in a little like hideaway area. So you can have conversations even if the music is bumping upstairs. Okay. The downstairs has an area, I'm told, to like for parties and such. They redid the bathroom. They redid all the windows. All the windows got popped off and redone to improve kind of the HVAC of that place. Because we all know big windows, especially older big windows, that can be expensive to keep maintaining. They did the upstairs. They added new seating up there, but they really enhanced like the techno loft. So there's like this crow's nest loft with a beautiful view of that corner there of Capitol Park, looking down on Canal, the Detroit Institute of Music, education, all of that. And that's kind of redone and shined up. It's a great space for that coffee, transitioning into cocktails in the evening, transitioning kind of into the party space. And I'm really glad to see this get a facelift, but not a redo. And this is what struck me right away. You heard that the Anchor Bar has been redone, right? And we know the Anchor Bar has been up and down since it was sold. That redo was a pretty substantial redo. This redo is substantial, but you go in there and you're like, yep, this is the Urban Bean, but turned to 11. And that's what I love about it.
Okay. All right. Well, that is a full synopsis, except for now that it has booze. What did you get to drink there?
Oh, I mean, I always do something basic if I'm, on the way, like a gin and tonic or something like that. I know where the level is. I need to go back and do a full cocktail tasting all the way. And maybe, just maybe, we should do like a Daily Detroit summer music get together over there sometime. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I think everybody would enjoy that. Yes, for sure, Jer.
And it'd be a good size. It's a little bit smaller, but it'll be a good size for the summertime where, a lot of people are out of town doing stuff, whatever. So if we got, just a few people out, that would be great, and check it out and have some fun with that. So I was just really glad. And it really filled my spirit to see Capitol Park so busy. Like it really is like the beating heart of downtown in so many ways now.
Yeah, that has really become the epicenter. That and Campus Martius, but Capitol Park really feels like a neighborhood. Capitol Park being busy is basically par for the course these days.
For sure, for sure. What have you been up to?
Well, Jer, I have been out in Ferndale in the near suburbs, as it were, or South Oakland County, which I gotta say, I think I've said it before. Ferndale's kind of entertainment district, that 9-mile Woodward corridor is as strong as anywhere's. But they have a Traverse City Whiskey outpost over there. And so I stopped into Traverse City Whiskey, and they had a new offering. It was called a Lakeside Peach. So it's a bourbon, but it's Lakeside Peach Bourbon.
Peach bourbon. Okay, I'm a little sus with these. All right, you got to convince me here.
Why? You shouldn't need too much convincing, Jared.
Okay,
this isn't like a cheap infusion. This is actually the Traverse City Whiskey infused with Michigan peaches.
Okay.
And it's really nice. It still tastes like a bourbon. It's a little bit lighter, though. You have some sweetness from the peach. You could just sip this on its own, but what I found was really nice is throw some ice in a lowball or rocks glass, add some of the Lakeside Peach, and then do a few drops of just Angostura bitters to kind of balance out the sweetness of the peach. That alone is a really good drink. If you wanted to kind of make it a summer sipper, all you'd have to do is same thing, but throw that in like a Collins glass or a highball, and then add some club soda, and you've got more of kind of a sipping drink.
So you're saying it's a superior suburban bourbon?
I wasn't saying that, but I am now. You are.
Okay, now I haven't been to Traverse City Whiskey. I've looked at it through the window, but I didn't have the chance because I was over at Como's next door and I didn't have the chance to go in. What's the vibe of the place itself?
It's really cool. I mean, it's kind of, I guess you could say it looks very distillery-ish. There's, bottles all across the back wall. There's a little swag section with all sorts of cherries and bitters and bottles and shirts and hats and all that stuff. And then it attaches to Como. So it's kind of cool. I mean, I was sitting there for just a little while, and you had a lot of people coming in from Como's, stopping into Traverse City Whiskey, either after or before or while waiting for a table. There's a little patio area so you can sit outside. So it's a really nice little vibe right there on Woodward, just north of 9 Mile.
Devon, I'm almost reticent to bring this up because we have talked about it 3 ways from Sundays on the show. But that Hudson's project, when I walked by the other day and saw the people pointing at the skyline and people asking me, because I took some pictures for Instagram, which I'm going to throw up there, asking me what's happening. What is the project? What's going in there? There's a fascination to this project, and there's also an unfolding storyline. It's kind of like the building everybody's talking about in Detroit because it has so many different layers to it. And there is yet another one, as Dan Gilbert's development crew have withdrawn their request temporarily for $60 million in additional tax incentives. And this has really gotten people talking because it's something where it hits people viscerally. There are people who say, okay, this project got underway. We don't need to be handing out anymore. There's other people who say this is really crucial for downtown and to keep people like Dan Gilbert investing into the future. What's your take on this next thing? And then also we'll talk about the council president's proposals for what she'd like to see to get more incentives over to the Bedrock folks.
There's a lot to unpack here, but and we can get into Councilwoman Sheffield's proposals, which there's some legitimate things that can be talked about. Now, on its face, we're not talking about proposals and proposing a development. This is shovels in the ground. The thing is 13 stories high or more at this point. It's piercing the skyline. this has to get done. We got to finish this. We're too close to have anything kind of derail this. It's an incredible project for the city, for downtown, for the entire city. And I think it's important, and I'll hammer it home as long as we need to, with how these tax abatements work. And I want to stress, there's not just one big pot, or it's not just a pot that you can transfer the contents to other pots. The tax capture, the DDA, can only be used for downtown developments. So if your anger or your proposal is take this money, that the $60 million tax abatement, and use it for, neighborhood pools, use it for community centers, use it for building schools in other neighborhoods, that is literally not possible. That's not what this money can even be used for. So if you're going to oppose this, at least have an understanding of what you can do with this money. So if you don't want the $60 million to go to Dan Gilbert's project, you have to tell me what downtown development projects you would like it to go to.
Well, some people would argue two things: that one, Dan Gilbert's the richest guy in town; two, that something like these tax captures shouldn't exist. Now, I have reasons that they do from personal experience, but to be fair, there is kind of that other side of the argument. I will also make the mention that because, and we've talked about this on the show through the split rate tax conversation, things like that, Detroit does have the highest property taxes on a project like this. In fact, I think even New York City would be less to build in as far as property taxes. So there's multiple headwinds here. And then the Gilbert folks make the claim that they cannot get the bank loan without the $60 million in financing. And I will say, I don't know the particulars of this individual thing, but the city of Detroit still has a lot of trouble getting financing for mega projects. The Bedrock folks have a track record of self-financing because they have to. Investment banks still view Detroit as risky. Like, we aren't done yet. I don't know how much to stress. Like, there is momentum and things happening, but there are still some fundamental structural gaps that need to be fixed in the city of Detroit for our comeback to really get out of the 7.2 and out of some targeted areas. We have to make some fundamental reforms. They're going to require us to say no to some things, but this is why I'm not running for office, because I would tell you have to say no to some things, and then I would not get elected.
That's what would happen, Jerry. And that's an important point. And I think, if you're of the mind that these tax abatements and tax capture shouldn't even exist, that's fine.
I mean, that's a fair argument. It's a fair argument,
but it's not a reality argument. It's not a reality. It's not the world we live in right now. So, you want to do that? Great. We got to get a whole new slate of elected officials in there who are going to change this. Right now, you don't have that. Right now, what you have is this pot that needs to be used on X, Y, and Z. And so you got to tell me, if not for this, what do you want to use it on?
Well, so let's talk about a little bit of the cause for these kind of things. Now, DDAs and these kinds of facilities are common throughout the country. Like, this is a common thing that's done. Yeah. And one of the things that's a reality in Detroit, from my personal life experience, seeing it, dealing with some of these things, is that the city of Detroit services, and as someone who lives out of the 7.2, there is a difference in services between even the DDA, which is the super tight area, the 7.2, what Wayne State can offer, a lot of Midtown. The reason why it's as nice as it is because the additional services provided by Wayne State, the stuff that Sue Mosey does, all of that. The reality is that the city of Detroit cannot provide proper services to a lot of its neighborhoods. And another evidence of this is very timely, where the University District, where I used to live, is now going to be levying a nearly $200 a year extra tax to pay for things like snow removal and security. And the University District Cultural is, I'm trying to remember, UDCA. The reason being is that the city still, even with all this tax money, like, there's fundamental structure issues going on, and like, they want to have snow plowing that works in their community. Now, is the administration correct in that a snow plow comes by and hits every street? Technically correct, but I can tell you, living outside of those areas, my street is an ice rink for 4 days every winter, multiple times. Like, that is just the reality. And if we want to see improvements like we're seeing downtown, we need to tell some people no and open up some issues that people don't want to open, some sacred cows, to reform how city services are delivered and focus them on areas where people actually live. That's a really complicated answer that I don't have talking on a microphone, but that's why. Like, there are functional reasons why this is the way it is in the city of Detroit. And we need to look at ways to equalize that. But saying no to this project, I mean, if it were going for schools, I would definitely have a bigger thing with it. It still rubs me the wrong way to ask for more later. I'm not going to deny that, Devon.
That's fine, Jerry. I mean, again, you're starting to get into bigger concepts than just kind of what this is and the tax capture and tax abatement and, big picture stuff about what money should be used for. And, you said where people live, and I could push back on it and say the density is a lot higher in downtown, midtown, in that area. Density is higher in the 7.2 than the north end. So where do people live? I don't know. There's something to be said about that too. So obviously services need to be addressed though, and that's a huge thing. But where does that money come from?
Right. And when you see neighborhoods address their own things, it just gives you an example of like why those things exist. I think there's a lot of jobs at stake. I don't think that he would pull the plug, but I do think that he would consider modifying. And I wonder at what time does it feel like it's just too difficult to do things in Detroit? And remember, my own personal opinion on this is that I think that the base system should be fixed. I don't think we should be handing out incentives left and right. I think our base system should be business friendly, but that's a whole nother podcast.
That can be a whole nother podcast, Jared. And I would gladly hop on there with you and talk about how high construction costs are. And like you alluded to, building a skyscraper in downtown Detroit is at least as expensive as building one in Chicago. And we'll transition to Councilwoman Sheffields' proposal and some of the items she's looking to have. And the first one is moving 20 to 30% of Bedrock's entire housing portfolio being dedicated to affordable housing at 60% area median income. That sounds great on paper. And a vacuum, I love it. But in practice, you may be asking Bedrock to start bleeding money. And I'm just calling it down the middle here. In a vacuum, that sounds great. But if Bedrock comes back and says, we're going to start hemorrhaging money if we take 30% of our entire housing portfolio and dedicate it to 60% area median income, this is no longer sustainable. What if Bedrock says that?
But I'd say that there's ways to weasel around this with various grants and other types of funding that's able to be found.
That's a lot, Jer.
Right? Like there's ways to accomplish this, but you look at a number of projects that are being done with 20% affordable housing in them in the city. We've talked about them. We've covered them. I think that 30% is a push, but I understand where she's coming from. She also wants to dedicate 20% of street level retail space to be utilized by Detroit small businesses and community programming. I mean, that sounds good on the face. I feel like we'd need to get some P's and Q's on that one. And like, what does it actually mean?
Jer, I think that one's pretty doable, just in the sense that you could kind of work your way around that. Detroit small businesses and community programming. If you're Bedrock, you could allocate certain space, just particular square footage for community programming, community events. I think you could get around that. I don't want to say it in like a nefarious term, but you could make that happen, I think.
Now, also $1 million commitment to the development and growth of Detroit small businesses, as well as $5 million to support the Neighborhood Improvement Fund.
I think that we're going line by line, Jer. The $1 million commitment to development in Detroit small businesses, that should be an easy one. I mean, check that off the box. I do think that Bedrock already does a good amount of investment in support of small businesses. I think they can make that happen. The $5 million commitment to support the NIF, again, face value, I think that's a very worthy proposal, but I guess maybe we need to look back into, didn't the Gilbert Foundation propose $500 million for neighborhood investment?
Well, there's the foundation and then there's the company itself, right?
Fair enough.
I think there's probably some ways to work around. I mean, again, I like the idea of these things. I also like the idea of transparency to see if commitments to jobs and investments are being honored and fulfilled. I mean, some of those things are like bullet point things. On their face, I don't see them as being crazy. What I am concerned about long term is when you look at the numbers, and people got to make money to invest. If they don't make money, this is, as much as some people might not like it, this is a capitalist nation. And if you don't make money, the thing doesn't exist. And so that's what I get worried about, where it's like every single project has to make money on its own. Like, regardless if Dan Gilbert's a billionaire, any project you do has to be able to, whether you are a millionaire, 100,000-aire, a 10,000-aire, a $10-buck-an-aire, like every project on its own has to make money.
100% right, Jerry. And that's, I think, such an important takeaway, honestly, is that, like you said, Jerry, at the end of the day, the numbers have to make sense for the people investing all this money. Because if the numbers don't make sense, then either these people walk away from it or it just becomes charity. And then at that point, we're talking about philanthropic endeavors. And that's a whole separate thing. But if we're talking about business and economic development, it needs to make sense. There is a bottom line there. And it has to work, or else those people who are investing the money aren't going to get behind these projects. So, Jared, I listened to Dr. Paul's episode earlier this week, and great conversation, important conversation. But I had some thoughts that I wanted to add from kind of a different perspective, because way more intelligent people than me, way more relevant people than me are saying the right things, and they're saying the important things. But I just had kind of a different lens I wanted to look through with this.
Which lens shall you pick, sir?
Well, given my interests and experience, I want to talk about it through the talent attraction and retention lens.
Okay. And so, and baseline, I think, and because I know you, I think I can say this. I think we are both on the camp of the right to choose, correct? Like personally.
Oh, absolutely.
So we'll start the conversation there just to make sure. And these are our personal opinions.
Women's rights are human rights. I mean, I think I can say that. We talk a lot about talent retention and, making sure that we have a high skilled workforce and that we don't have this brain drain where people from our great universities, Michigan State, Western, Central, Michigan Tech, they aren't leaving the state and getting better jobs seemingly elsewhere. We want to make sure that we're attracting talent. We want to be a net positive state for tech talent, advanced manufacturing talent, future mobility talent. The brain trust of Michigan is all trying to figure out how we can be better at attracting talent, because when you look at where Michigan is right now, we're at an inflection point. We're right in that middle there. In all those metrics on, population growth, cost of living, quality of life, advanced degrees and education, we're like right in the middle. We're like 22 to 29 in all those categories. And we can either slide down into the Alabamas, Mississippis, Louisianas, Iowas, or we can trend up into places like, North Carolina, California, New York, even Pennsylvania to some extent, Massachusetts, Colorado. We can go either way. And I think that from a talent attraction standpoint alone, if you're not seen as a state that supports women's rights, or if you're trending in the more restrictive direction with your legislature, you are not going to attract the best talent, because that's just not what they're into. That's not what they want. I'm speaking for them, but I mean, look, you can do any poll you want or look at any metric. The majority of young professionals, millennials, are vehemently against restricting women's rights. And so, from a purely competitiveness standpoint, from a talent attraction standpoint, from retaining the top talent standpoint, I think, we really need to think long and hard about this. And that's just another lens, again, to look through. There's much more urgent and important ways and reasons why we can feel this way. But I just wanted to provide kind of a different lens to say, here's even the business case. Here's the future of our state economically case for it.
Okay, Devon, I want to leave people with something that'll have them smile, something to be excited about, a new thing. And the new thing is starting this Thursday, and it's going to run Thursdays through Sundays from noon to 8:30 p.m. There will be a free shuttle from the Belle Isle Fountain to the Belle Isle Conservatory. So you will be able to make that trip over and use that. And what they're trying to do is lessen car traffic on Belle Isle. And there's a few different things we're going to talk about. In fact, I'm going to talk to someone later in this month about, he has a petition to actually make Belle Isle car free on occasion, which is really interesting. But there have been a series of accidents on Belle Isle. There have been some terrible things that have happened with speeding, people being irresponsible. And so what they're trying to do is encourage people to walk more, to take shuttles, to do different things. I mean, I got a ton of thoughts around this, but what are your thoughts?
I love it, Jer. It's a little conflicted, I will say. And personally, I love the idea of having as little cars as possible on Belle Isle, because that car congestion really just throws everything off. It's harder to get around. It's harder to kind of maneuver, walk around Belle Isle. It makes things more difficult. So the less cars, the better. Having a shuttle there is awesome. I just think we need to make it as easy as possible for people to kind of ditch their cars. What I'd like to ultimately see, honestly, is some kind of a park and ride shuttle of sorts where, people can easily, because let's be honest, people need to get to Belle Isle with cars. So you got to come to Belle Isle with a car. So I'd like to see some kind of easy, maybe lot area where people can park their cars, hop on a shuttle, take it over to Belle Isle. And I would love to transition to a no vehicle Belle Isle. Having been on Mackinac, a month ago, I love that concept, and it would be great.
Well, I mean, I think that not just wealthy people deserve to have peace and quiet, I would like to see a few things. Now, I don't think we'll ever get cars off the island completely, although I'm more than willing to entertain days of it. I think that a circulator is important and things like that, but I think there could be some great initial steps to do things that could make things really great. One would is that Central Avenue that has the statue in the middle of it.
Mhm.
People have asked me, why is there a statue in the middle of the road? It's because it wasn't originally a road. And like turning that back to a walking, biking path would be really interesting. If we could get the demand up, it'd be fabulous to have like a ferry from downtown to the island, or even like from the east side. I mean, how cool would that be to like reach out to say, hey, you don't even need to use the bridge. I mean, these are all big picture things that require resources and money, but I mean, I would love to see all those things. Like, I see so many amazing things for Belle Isle where we could have so many more people use it and utilize it and make it safer. And I mean, I understand the concern. Like, and I also understand lots of people love to cruise Belle Isle and have history doing that. And I get that. And maybe the circulator can be part of that. But at the end of the day, you can't have 15-year-olds going 90 miles an hour hitting people. And so you got to make some changes.
No, I agree. Little cars as possible on Belle Isle. I love what you were alluding to with why not? The riverfront is such a vibrant place right now. You got to run a water shuttle from the riverfront, down near the Rensen, from the riverfront over to Belle Isle. That's a great idea. Someone needs to do that.
Did you know that I've actually taken one?
What?
Yeah.
Really?
So Grand Prix, number of years ago, I worked a chalet, and one of the perks was you get on the island and whatever. And that year, they did the trial of a water taxi to the police dock. Now, the police dock needed a lot of repairs. Like, it was a great experiment, but I think there would need to be a purpose-built thing to it because, I mean, it was wet, like infrastructure disaster, but the concept was there and it was awesome. And it was a beautiful memory to be able to take that ferry shuttle to the island. And if we could get the infrastructure in there, I think it'd be amazing.
I'd love to see it, Jared. Let's take a shuttle to Belle Isle soon. Water taxi.
If any listeners happen to have a boat just to take us, right?
too.
We could do the daily Detroit. Well, I'm all for excursions.
Could make some money. Charge a little fare fee to take us across the river to Belle Isle.
All right, Devon O'Reilly, it's so good to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, Jer. I hope you have a great, great holiday weekend, as I hope all the listeners do.
Absolutely, me too. I'm Jer Stays. Remember, if you've got feedback, dailydetroit@gmail.com. Our studio fire fund, buymeacoffee.com/dailydetroit. Thank you to all of those of you who have stepped up. With that, remember that you are somebody, and I'll see you around Detroit.